Thanks, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our journey in creating a healthy, high-performance culture, what we learned along the way. I think they're two words that typically sometimes are mutually exclusive, and we've tried really hard to bring them together. So 5 years ago, when we were really starting to grow and had 10 people, I'll be honest, I thought that core values and culture were bullshit. I saw these types of things on the wall in every company I walked into, and it had little to do with how they acted or behaved, and it just seemed like something that you had to do and check off the box. And one of my favorite examples was Enron, who perpetrated the largest fraud in history, had values on their wall of integrity, communication, respect, and excellence. So I didn't have a lot of good examples to point to. And I think the key is these are not actually the values that Enron had. Enron had different values, which probably were something like this. And actually, this was how you got promoted and hired at Enron for doing this. So I had to really think about what is culture. And everyone has that who would you meet and what company you're most impressed with. I've always been amazed and fascinated with Herb Kelleher and what he's done at Southwest. And I was at a conference 4 or 5 years ago, and an author who had interviewed him said, I talked to Herb and I said, you built a company that from 1980 to 2000 made more money than the entire US airline industry in an industry that's terrible and with a value proposition of low cost, which when you put them together, you're pretty much destined for bankruptcy. How did you guys do that? And his one-word answer was culture. So I was like, well, there must be something to this. And that's when I started to realize that culture is really, it's your company's operating system. It's how you expect to run and make decisions. And another description that I really love is how people make decisions in your company when you're not in the room. So I was really inspired by the Netflix culture deck. If you guys haven't seen this, Patty McCord, who is their chief talent officer, and Reed Hastings put this together. Netflix is a performance-oriented company. They've made 2 pivots. They put their DVD out of business with their streaming business, and then they've gone to original content and streaming. So they have done what most companies can't do. And when Sheryl Sandberg called this the most important thing to ever come out of Silicon Valley. And when you go through this deck, you see that their culture is laid out, what they value, how it works, how they expect people to behave. It's really great. You understand that this is just the DNA. And I was like, that's the answer. We need something like that, because to me, that drove culture to be very tangible. So, what I've learned is that the building blocks of culture really are vision, core values, and alignment. And vision is purpose, something that people get excited to work, for you, come to work, particularly with millennials. Look, I've ragged on them a lot in the past, but if they don't have a purpose, you won't be able to get them to work for you, and you're going to run out of workers. Core values, again, the guideposts make the decision, and alignment. And so for us, we're really trying to change the digital marketing industry to be performance-based. It's a big and lofty goal. And as you'll see, we're trying to really also change the work-life paradigm and what is supposed to be normals and what company are supposed to do. Our core values: own it, embrace relationship, and excel and improve. We used to have 6. I was really inspired by a speech 2 years ago of someone who talked about the importance of having fewer core values, so that, again, you didn't need an acronym. People just were expected to know them. Also, the big thing we realized, we used to debate, well, this person's kind of 5 out of 6 or maybe 4.5 out of 6. Now you have to be 3 out of 3. 2 out of 3 is 66%, and that won't work. So when we got down to these 3 core values, everyone knows them. It makes it a lot better. And then every high-performance company I've come into contact with is running some sort of alignment system. We run the entrepreneurial operating system, EOS Traction, whether it's Rockefeller Habits. They have some planning and discipline tool that ties all this vision and core values into accountability and goals and planning to make it tangible on a daily basis. So for us, our core values in action is hiring. I'll say managing out or transitioning out. We really try to eliminate the firing. How we promote people, very clear that it's based on the core values, and we highlight them regularly. What clients we choose to work with and choose not to work with, and then our key decisions, as I mentioned before. So I wanted to build a high-performance company, and this is important to me. I demand excellence. I'm not easy to work for, but at the same time, I can't stand jerks and people that are not respectful. And when I was 22 years old, one of my first managers drew me this 2x2 matrix. And he said, this is incompetent, and in the upper right, these people are great. In the lower right, incompetent, disrespectful people, they're easy, you get rid of them. He's like, brilliant jerks, companies have a hard time figuring out. Some companies tolerate that, some companies don't, we don't. But then he did the verbal pause and he said, these people in the upper left, they will kill your company, the nice and competent people. These are the folks who you give the second and the third and the fourth try to, because they're just so nice. And you keep believing that they're gonna do it, but they really can't for whatever reason it was. So that sort of came back to me in this process. And my goal was, how do we balance high performance with what I call GHB? We want to be good human beings, and we want good human beings to work with us, and we want to balance this. And if you think about it, I think in a lot of businesses, they are mutually exclusive. So if you've read Steve Jobs' biography, think about Apple. I mean, he got people to do things that they didn't think they could do. He was very inspirational. He pushed them, loved that component. He's also a terrible person to work for and made people stressed and miserable. Amazon really taking over the world. Article last year about some of the awful working conditions, and that people whose family members have had cancer or have had babies, sort of maternity leave are passed over, and these are not good things to have at Amazon. And then on the flip side, you have a lot of family businesses or nonprofits that are really nice and supportive, but there's just no focus on performance. So we wanted to go after the intersection. And part of this is just understanding what I've come to see as sort of 3 truths of employees. So first one, simple but obvious, people want to be treated with dignity and respect. And a lot of places they're not. And that's more about our own fears than I think anything else. Despite what Jack Nicholson said, famous movie line, they can handle the truth and they want to know the truth in most cases. You're just not telling it to them because, again, it makes you sleep better. And then the last thing, big one for me, is managers, and this came from Patty McCord too, managers own the job of great teams. So an A+ player on your team is someone who cultivates A+ teams, hires, inspires, and prunes where necessary. So we like to say ours is a culture of respectful authenticity. We're sort of in this intersection of high performance and good human beings. We're trying to raise people's capacity, have them do great things in our business and elsewhere, but be truthful with them and say what needs to be said and not avoid the obvious. So in building the culture, it really all starts with hiring. Anything you ever need to know about hiring is with G.H. Smart or this book, Who. These guys have spent 30 years studying hiring and they've nailed it. 90% of your culture problems can be solved with getting hiring right. A lot of time you spend on culture is fixing the wrong hires. So it starts with core values. A lot of our interviews talked about excel and improve. We're looking for where have they excelled and improved in their lives, how have they demonstrated this. We're looking for aptitude and attitude. So attitude's pretty straightforward. Aptitude is, again, are they learners? Do we think they have a high ceiling? How would they do in general? And a big one in this Who book and has sort of been life-changing is define the outcomes you want. And it's kind of interview against the performance review. And there's someone out there who says, look, I'm willing to sign up for that. That's often better than someone who has the experience but isn't willing to sign up for that outcome. And most of us would always say our best hire was that little bit younger, inexperienced, hungry person who rose up higher than we thought we could. And the last one is not me. So I don't interview anyone outside the executive team anymore. I used to interview everyone. I know a lot of CEOs are completely controlling and they're interviewing everyone. Again, you're taking that accountability off your team. And we'd hire them. I'd interview the person, seems nice, seems like a great fit. I think that gave people an excuse. Oh, Bob hired him, and we liked him. My job was just to see if they were a nice fit for the company. My job was not to figure out whether they could do their job. That was the manager's job. So I don't interview anyone outside of the executive team at this point. I work on the training and the interview system and what we want to find, but we leave that to the teams to build their own teams. And then for me, it's about capacity building, and this is really important. So for a company now that's 70 people, we focus a lot on holistic training. We focus on we have a leadership development program, managerial training, getting along with others, personal goals, plus all the tactical marketing stuff. out there. For those of you who read my Friday forwards, I just believe in increasing people's capacity overall, and that will make them better employees in our business, not trying to make them better robots for our business. And you'll see why this is important as we jump into the next couple slides. So this is an epiphany that sort of came to me in the last couple of weeks that we sort of, I've known, but I think is the truth for high growth companies. So the dotted line is our growth rate. It's been about 30% a year for 5 years. That's our capacity, that's what we need. So if we pick a given function, let's say marketing, it might go from needing an associate to a manager to a director to a VP. So if we start with sort of who we hire in the beginning, let's look at both extremes. If we hire the person who's got no ability to increase their capacity and they can't get better from day one and we're growing, they're pretty much out of a job pretty quickly. They're just not gonna keep up. On the other side, if you can hire someone that can get 40 to 50% better a year and sort of exceed your needs, that's a unicorn. Hire them, keep them, but you can't build your business on that, and you might get one or two or lucky. So for us, again, the A player is the person who can stay on the curve, right? So as we need the manager, they can evolve into the director and the VIP. Again, still hard, but I'm asking them to get 30 or 40% better a year because that's just the requirements of the job. And then there's the hard choices. So these orange folks, they're doing a good job, right? They're moving forward, they're building up, but they're just below the line. And this is where I think a lot of companies struggle. There is a job for the person. The problem is this person's a manager, and now we need a director. They could stay as a manager, but pride and ego gets in their own way. They don't like that director coming in above them. And I agonized over this. I had talks and talks with CEOs, and the conclusion I heard from everyone is you just have to transition these people out. They were probably, if you can't increase their capacity, there's a capacity building zone. If you can't get them up to that line, and they're not willing to accept the sort of realities of what the business needs, you just need to transition them out. And this guy said to me once, and this was sort of the light bulb for me, he said, all of these people, it was the hardest thing I ever did. They were some of our best performers. And to a T, 2 to 3 years later, they all came back to me and said, you were right, I was over my head, I didn't see it at that time. So again, these are the hard decisions. You can either coach them and get them up to the line, or they need to accept that the line has moved, but for a lot of people, they just can't do that. Which leads me to my other realization about the experienced hire. So a lot of people go out and they say, I'm gonna get the experienced hire. Again, our growth curve is the same. And what they do is they get someone who's just a little further down on the road, but whose growth curve is also not that great. So I hire that manager because he's a little ahead of what I need, or I hire that director, but he or she is not a great learner, they're not evolving, and pretty soon they're consumed by our growth line, and I can't understand why they're an underperformer. So almost everyone I've talked to in our experience has been, if you actually find these people who start a little over their head but have a higher capacity, usually they come outside of your industry, and they're just, again, they're higher aptitude folks. They have the ability to rise above your line and stay with your growth curve. And this is where we've seen most of the success. And this is where I think the experienced hire runs into trouble, particularly when you've paid them ahead for this value that pretty much diminishes pretty quickly. So this has been a big learning for us. So we try to find the right people. We try to coach up their capacity. We have a culture of very honest feedback. Again, we try to operate in this respectful and authentic zone. Feedback for us is about growth. We've adopted a rule I heard from the Ritz-Carlton, which is you give feedback in 3 days or you let it go. I think they called it targeting, people who save all their grievances and come back to you 90 days later and hear all the things I didn't like about you. I mean, that's how you make it personal, not about growth. So we follow something called SBO, situations, behaviors, outcome. What happened? What did you do? What was the outcome? We keep all feedback outcome oriented and why that was, what the outcome of that was. We try to really coach people on depersonalizing feedback if you want to learn from feedback. So managing transitions. So you got to get really good, unfortunately, at managing transitions in a high growth business, as I said before. And I read this article again from Patty 5 years ago, and it just hit home for me and sort of was the root of everything we did. She talked about a conversation with an employee saying, look, here's what I need, and it's really not you. And I don't want to humiliate you, and I don't want to embarrass you, so we need to find something else for you to do. And it's not here if they didn't have the role. And Netflix was just really good about having these open and honest discussions, and the notion that like people knew it. They knew when they were failing, it wasn't good. Everyone just wasn't discussing it until it got to too late. And so what Netflix did is they gave people 6 to 12 months severance, and they had a phrase which said, Patty used to say, keep your head high and go be from Netflix. Like go be from Netflix. So I loved this, and this was great. The problem was I couldn't pay 6 to 12 months severance for every person that didn't work out. So we had to figure out our own way to do this. And we came up with a program that we called Mindful Transitions. And this has been an evolution. This has taken 2 years to get people to have confidence in this. I'm not trying to explain it's easy. But I wanted to end the 2-week paradigm. 2-week paradigm is terrible. 2 weeks notice paradigm. It's bad for the company. I'm in a client service business. It's terrible for clients. It's bad for the employee. You give me 2 weeks notice, I now realize you've been lying to me for 4 months. You've been telling me it's great. You've had a lot of doctor's appointments. You've wanted to work from home. So my last memory of you as your future reference is you lying to me. And sadly, this has become like a standard, and I just don't know why. So we're trying to remove the taboo from transitions, as we call them, and we just make it clear that they're going to happen. We encourage very open dialogue. If you come to us and you say, look, I'm not sure this is what I want to do, I want to do something else, it helps us try to find a better role for you. It helps us start maybe a longer term discussion. Likewise, we will have those discussions with you, and we let everyone know, our employees, that we might start a discussion, hey, look, I think this role is coming to an end, and we should talk about what you're going to do. And sometimes these are 2 or 3 month transitions. We let people look for work. We give them references. We help them find new roles. If you come to us and you're open and honest, like, I will do my best to find you a job. I'll give you a reference. I'll use my Rolodex. Some people find it very strange that I'm like referring these people openly. They say, what are you giving us, your trash? I'm like, no, this person's great. They just, they're looking to do something that we don't have anymore. And again, it's hard for people to get a recommendation from their previous employer. It's also really hard if they've left with 2-week notice and that was their last impression. So we've had some great outcomes with this. Talk about increasing that capacity. Encouraged a lot of team to set goals and build vision boards. This was an employee at the top. She actually posted this on Facebook, who's a single mom. She was really focused on making a certain salary. She really just wasn't ready at our company to do that, and we were honest with her. She found an opportunity with one of our partners, went and did that. She met her goal. We supported her. We still work from her, and she posted a really long thing on Facebook the day that she left. Lower left, employee, great, one of our long-term employees. We knew we wanted to do something more data-oriented. Apple sends us this job description one day and says, we really need someone doing data affiliate stuff on our team. We looked at each other and we're like, this is what he really wants to do. We said, look, you should go interview this. And if you get it, we'd be happy to have you go. We'd hate to lose you. He went, he got it, moved his family to San Francisco, and is having an amazing time. And he sent an excerpt of this to the entire company on his last day. And then the last person is actually in part of a 4-month transition. He wants to start a business, we think is a great outcome. And he went and wrote this article and posted it on Medium. So all of this really aligns with, my friend Lee wrote this book called The Boomerang Principle about leaving your doors open, having people come back, active alumni. That's just sort of, I think, where work is going. And then most importantly, I think we've held up to the good human beings test. I've had 4 employees whose parents have died from cancer in the last 6 months. Again, in line with our culture, we went to each of them when we found out, and we said, look, do whatever you need to do. Time off, whatever you need to do. However, I need you to be here or not here, and when you're here, I don't want to ask people to manage around you or dance around you, but again, whatever you need. We had one woman who devised, and she's on the right, talking about being able to spend the last couple of weeks of her mom's life with her and the flexibility, but she devised going to work, taking off days when her mom went to chemo treatment, and actually working the other days was really distracting for her, and she built her schedule for 3 months, and again, is one of the top performers in our company, and is a great long-term investment for us. So key learnings along the way. So I think Jim Collins had this mostly right. An A player for us at Acceleration Partners is the right person, right seat, but it's also the right time. And I think when you're growing this quickly, you fail to see that your seat needs change slightly, and what was working 6 months ago doesn't work, and it's just something you need to be really cognizant of. Again, as I said before, I think people just want the truth and they want respect. You can eliminate almost all legal issues with people leaving and departing by being open and being respectful with them. I think respect is where, and distrust is where most of these issues emanate from. And just because they're not right for your company anymore doesn't mean they don't have value to someone else or value as a human being. And we have a very hard time separating those two things. I think it's cognitive dissonance in our brain trying to protect us from ourselves. Tough people decisions make or break a high-performance business. You make most of your tough decisions 6 to 12 months after you should have made them, and then everyone else says you should have done that 6 to 12 months ago. And again, what I've learned is that your A players learn how to make these decisions, and if they can't do them for themselves, it's hard for them to be A players on your team. Again, their job is to build the team. When to invest in people. I really believe investing in people. Again, this is a lesson I've had to learn. They have all the core values. They are above average or high potential, and they understand their weaknesses and want to improve. Conversely, the biggest mistake, and this is I've learned the hard way, never invest to get someone to average. Just cut your losses and move on. We have about a 99% correlation rate with it goes well or not well in the first 2 weeks and people working out. If you're going to invest all this time just to get them to do the basics of the job somewhat well, that's not going to be a good long-term story for your company. Beware of the people who quit and stay. Someone told me they're much more dangerous than the people that quit and leave. And sometimes you have incentives, equity or otherwise, that are encouraging them to just hang around. We specifically designed our Phantom Equity program to have value as people leave so that they can just leave when they want to leave or if the time is right to leave. And what you permit is what you promote. People will notice the difference between what you do and what you say, apropos to the Enron example earlier. Brian Halligan, CEO of HubSpot, gave a great speech a few weeks ago, and he talked about what's our job as a CEO or founder, and he saw it as just 3 things related to the bus. So where's the bus going? That's the purpose and the vision. Who's on the bus? Do you have the right people, especially at the highest level? I would argue you should leave the seats to your team to figure out who goes where. And do we have enough gas, as we heard from the radio flyer example earlier? Just some tools that help. TinyPulse is a great tool that anonymously asks all your employees a question each week. If you want to get honest feedback from your team, start-stop lists. What should we start doing around here? What should we stop doing around here? Is a great tool to get honest feedback. Again, it depersonalizes it. 360 feedback. Everyone's got to know their strengths and weaknesses. And then the 555 check-in is something from the traction system that we use to do quick quarterly check-ins in place of this annual review, because we're all about doing this live and in the moment and when it matters. So did it work? Our little experiment, as I mentioned before, we're up to 70 people. We lead our industry in the US, but more importantly to me is the culture stuff. We're in the top 1% of all companies on Glassdoor. We've won some great awards from Entrepreneur Inc. and otherwise. And we have people that are just increasing their work for us, and I can see their performance outside of work and their families and the thing they're accomplishing personally. Most importantly, I built a place that I want to go to work to every day, and that aligns with my core values, and that makes it really easy to do. So thank you. I have a roundtable, I think, on Friday morning. Happy to talk about anything on this, or the book that's in your bag is my marketing book, totally different topic, but happy to chat on either, and thank you very much.